Hello and welcome, everyone. We are here live with Exploring Ellomyr, a really hopefully very fun Twitch event where cats are welcome, where we explore adventures in Ellomyr. And we have two great writers and designers today to talk to you about how they think about adventure design and kind of specifically, for all of us who have been playing Numenera for a long time, a lot of the sort of basic adventure might be you're just traveling across this beautiful map behind me here, and you are exploring the next new thing over and over again. But with Numenera Destiny, we'll be having a lot more support and ideas for you about how to craft adventures around a community and, asking the questions. So you've gone out and found miraculous, outrageous, hilarious things in the incredible Ninth World. And now what are you going to do with them? And so I think it's a little bit of a different kind of focus that will really, really work for some groups, but is so different. I thought we'd have a great opportunity to hear how these designers are thinking about adventure design, so you'll be ready to run your games. This is also part of an extension of our Cypher Play program, which is our organized play program. We only offer it through retailers. It's sort of a good excuse to support our brick and mortar friends there. And it's a series of free adventures that retailers and GMs can run at stores. And it's totally all new adventures. It usually comes with 6. And this season is Defenders of Ellomyr, which is a really special one. And so we've extended the window a bit to lead into our release of Discovery and Destiny this summer. So we wanted to kind of help the GMs who might be running that run additional adventures to get there, and just otherwise let you people who might not know about Cypher Play that the window is still open and these are really fun, wild adventures that you might want to get into. So why don't I introduce my lovely panel here. So I'm Darcy, Monte Cook Games Community Relations Coordinator, and I have with me the fabulous Sean Reynolds. Say hi, Sean.
Hello, everybody.
And Bruce Cordell.
Hey, everybody. Nice to be here.
Yeah. So you two have been super hard at work on a lot of things, but especially the Numenera 2 projects, right? Do either of you want to talk about what you've been working on?
Well, for the last many months, we've all been working hard on the Numenera 2 Discovery and Numenera 2 Destiny books, which are the two core books, which will now make up Numenera. And in fact, we're still working on them because even though some of them are in layout, that doesn't mean there's not proofing going on. That doesn't mean there's playtest feedback still coming in. So not only have we been kept busy with those two core books, we've also moved on to additional projects, which were opened up by the Kickstarter, including the Trilling Shard, which is the Ellomyr specific series of a supplement, and also Building Tomorrow, which is one of the very first supplements opened up by the Kickstarter.
Excellent. And Sean, so you it's been a while, but you were the writer of Defenders of Ellomyr, right? Of this
Yes.
whole Cypher Play season. Would you mind telling us a little bit about what that was like? What the project is, what that whole sort of adventure arc is about?
So we wanted to give a sense of what the people of Ellomyr were going through as we had the fiction develop over the course of the Numenera 2 Kickstarter. And so there were a lot of events in there like, we've got this problem with Martyr that are coming up. Oh, we know that there's a situation. And so I tried to integrate a lot of those first phase of Ellomyr events in the Cypher Play series of scenarios. And I refer to it as the first phase because, as we get to talking about the Trilling Shard a bit, Bruce and I wrote the Trilling Shard to be in 3 distinct phases of Ellomyr. So there's Ellomyr as a village, Ellomyr as a town, and then Ellomyr as a city. And the idea is that with the source book, you can pick whichever phase of the city you want to have be the active phase in your campaign, and you can use the other phases as the past or the future, or just kind of for inspiring ideas or continuing plot elements. But we focused on the village version of it, the very starting version for Cypher Play. You have this little tiny village, a lot of small town threats, and touching on the events in the Kickstarter so that people who were really excited about the Kickstarter, or a lot of people didn't get a chance to be involved in the Kickstarter. So we wanted to let them have an opportunity to play through those narrative events.
Excellent. And you used some of the NPCs that were generated in some of the little fiction in the Kickstarter updates, right? Are some of our favorite characters from the campaign going to be woven in there a little?
Yes, you'll recognize Gurner, the original elder of the town. Some of the other key NPCs, like the town healer or the village healer, they have a role in one of the scenarios. So yeah, there's a lot of name dropping, and obviously we picked up those for use in the Trilling Shard as well.
Oh man, I'm so excited to see that. So I've been kept in the dark, but I know I hear rumblings about what's happening. I'm very excited. So why don't we get to the overall structure of this for you in chat, just so you know, is going to be, we're going to ask a little bit about how these two designers think about adventures in that are sort of community based or adventures around Ellomyr. We're going to list some cool adventure hooks that they've thought up. And then we're going to get into a little bit of an adventure building jam, which I hope you'll interact with us over this. So one of my favorite things that, I learned to GM using Numenera. So I come from a very specific place. But one of the things that really helped me when I was starting out was the instant adventure format. So I really like running one-shots for different people. I like to go run one-shots at cons or at stores, or, hey, I just met someone new. Have you heard about RPGs? Would you like to try them out? So having a bevy of one-shots at my hand is really helpful. But also the way that this instant adventure format works means it's super low prep. And it's got a neat little structure that I think we could probably build a little instant adventure that you can all go home and basically run with very low prep just from this setup, at least, at least the core skeleton of it. And so we'll try to kind of make that together, and that'll be a fun artifact to come out of this conversation. So let's talk about adventures in Ellomyr. So do you guys want to start with, do you have any salient ways that you have to think differently when you're basing adventures around a community, or is it not that different from sort of a, are there differences that people should be aware of? Bruce, do you have? Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Sorry. Yeah, I think if you're going to take advantage of the fact that you're working in a community, one of the things about a community that is important is the fact that there's a lot of different NPCs, and that those NPCs can become important to the player characters over time, just like in your real life, people around you can become important to you. So to bring those people out as individuals that you weave into the adventure, either because they've become endangered, or they've found a mystery, or they've had a loss that you can help try and recover from. I think that's the kind of thing, in addition to just the regular sorts of things you would do when writing an adventure, you would try and weave those in.
Ooh, that's really neat. Sean, do you have any other thoughts?
Just along those lines, a lot of times those NPCs are, as Bruce said, they're people that end up in danger, or they are driving plot elements because you need to do something for them. But if you have several sessions located in a particular community, you're going to have NPCs who disagree with you as well. And I think it's fun to go and bring them up in the future. Be like, oh yeah, this person that you had really annoyed two sessions ago, now they are out to get you, and they are trying to sabotage what you're doing. Not to the extent of they want to burn down the whole town, but if you're going to come up with an idea, they're going to say, you know what, let's point out all the reasons why that idea is stupid. And so now you have the player dealing with the dynamic of something that isn't necessarily they can just, beat up or use their authorities on to deal with this problem. They're like, okay, we need to negotiate and talk our way through this and convince other NPCs. So it makes the focus more on interacting with people and less on math.
Oh, that's really smart. So NPCs in this community as a source of heartstrings that you can tug on, but also conflict. You saying that makes me think of Shauna's The Poison Eater novel, which, takes place in a very, relatively constrained area with lots of really, really interesting NPCs. So breathing life into NPCs is a skill I'm still getting better at, but at least, one thing I like to do is I feel like I'm shilling the company products more than I mean to, but I do, but forgive me, this is what I GM. So we have an NPC deck, and I found that really useful. I've even been using it in our the Numenera game I'm starting to run on Twitch. So I feel like having little things at my fingertips of Sean is really good at this, of coming up with very specific details of an NPC and making them feel very realized. He's been running our internal Invisible Sun game, and I'm totally baffled at how he does that. So at some point, I will have a Twitch event where I excise that information from his brain cap, and we will all get to, enjoy that. But that's delightful. So, yeah, so like people being the heart of these adventures, the community is built of people, makes a lot of sense to me. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with that, or do you want to tell us give us some examples of some specific adventures people might have around a place like Ellomyr?
Okay, well, I can jump us off. I mean, obviously community adventures are not new to Ellomyr, right? I mean, for as long as we've been playing RPGs, you've come upon small communities and they said, we've lost our child, or we've lost our food supply, and we need to go off and meet that need that they've had this problem with, right? And Ellomyr could have could have all these same sorts of problems, right? There could be plague in the fields. There could be, the Marger are approaching. They're threatening the city directly, but that's kind of the well-known thing. But there's a lot of interesting things around Ellomyr. There's this huge sinkhole, for instance, such a huge sinkhole, in fact, that the Angry Red River, which is this crazy river that must have had some weird contamination a while ago, that's a different hook, the river falls into it, right? And it goes so deep that there's possibility of creatures actually living down in the bottom of it. Actually, probably more than a possibility, as I discovered when I was talking to Sean about I don't want to give something away, but yeah, there's definitely the possibility of things living down in the sinkhole near Ellomyr, and whether they're friendly or not so friendly, I guess remains to be seen.
Ooh, I like that a lot. Sean, do you have some thoughts on so when you went and wrote Defenders of Ellomyr, without giving any spoilers for people, like, did you, the Cypher play episodes are supposed to be, completable in an arc, like it will be fun to come back, every other week or so and play the next adventure, but also kind of encapsulated so new people can come experience it. So how did you think about that? What are some types of hooks that you like to play with this sort of community building adventures?
Well, it was interesting for Ellomyr because we have a kind of a broad timeline for what happens. Like we start with the player characters come to town, and it's before the town really knows that there's a threat of Marger out there. And it ends the season with you're having the battle against the Marger in town. And so there are several key events that happen in between those, but that's like 6 to 8 months of time.
Right.
So there's a lot of time that the scenarios assume, hey, you can go off and do other adventures here and then come back. But if you're not doing that, then they still kind of flow together directly that way. But because you talk to people in town a lot in these little scenarios, there's a lot of stuff that you can just grab as a hook and run with. In the second or third scenario, there's a peddler who comes to town every 6 months to a year selling oddities and news from other parts of the world. And that's an opportunity to see the world from the perspective of the little village people, not the village people, but the people of the village who haven't really experienced anything outside the world. Like this peddler has been to the vicinity of the Amber Monolith, or at least the claim that they have. And in Ellomyr, people are like, oh, that's the golden sliver. It's way far away on the horizon, because like that thing is like half a mile tall and it floats. It's really, really neat. So if the PCs are similarly kind of naive and new to the world like the villagers are, that's kind of a window to the outside world and gives you the opportunity to just insert some plot hooks of, oh, you know what? I'm a knowledgeable person. I saw this, weird ruin 2 days travel away. I've never gone there because I'm just a peddler, but you're an explorer. I want to check that out. And then you get all sorts of things that just kind of spin off of that. Like a person who comes to town every, once or twice a year, do they have any relationships with anybody in town? And there's actually one character in the Cypher play who apparently hooks up with this peddler every time they come to town, and they have a kid together.
Oh, cool.
So there's this little kid, and you're like, oh yeah, and it's like, yes, and clearly this kid looks like the peddler person, so you're aware that these people are, an on again, off again sort of couple, So there's some drama there with, well, my spouse, my lover, whatever, is gone half the time, but we have this kid. How does that play into the rest of the town society? Is everybody saying, yes, we're looking forward to that person coming back and being a responsible parent? Or is it just people accept that there are single parents and they just kind of raise the child as part of the community?
That pulls on my heartstrings, right? I love that kind of I like the idea that these people who are coming through, these outsiders, can also shed new light on these NPCs you've known for a long time. That's a really neat way to see your own community and sort of change or see new sides of them. That's super cool.
It's interesting that over time, I could imagine that, as that child, if assuming you have a game that kind of takes place over years, right, with long-term play thrown into the bucket, maybe advancing, Ellomyr from village to city or village to town to city. What's the relationship that kid, right? Are they going to be resentful of this traveling peddler who is not there all the time? Will they sometimes go with that peddler and come back, 6 months later? Will they become, it's just interesting to see how that would play out. But you would have to, of course, that would somehow have to be tied to the characters, right? The player characters.
Right.
Otherwise, player characters don't care. So it'd be interesting to see if like one of these people is like directly related, whether the peddler is or the person who has the relationship with the peddler is directly related to the PC or is one of the PCs.
That would be the
best. With a child, I don't know. That may not work.
Oh, that's awesome.
And actually, one other thing I want to mention related to that is because we set up this dynamic for Ellomyr and that it's attracting people and it's growing, you basically have an infinite number of possibilities of there's a stranger who's come to town. What's their story? Why are they coming to Ellomyr? There's a lot of talk about the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell and the transformation and all that sort of thing. There's a summary of there's only two stories that are the basis for everything. One is somebody goes on a journey and a stranger comes to town. And actually they're the same story, but from different perspectives. So whenever you bring a character into a community or take a character out of community, there's a story there that affects everybody else in the community in response to what they're doing.
Oh, I like that. I like the implied when they are not in this community, they are on some interesting, perhaps hero's journey that you just get glimpses of. That's super great.
Well, and relating to that, in one of the Ellomyr narratives in the Kickstarter, there was a person who was freaking out about the Martyr coming. It's like, we got to get out of here. We have to evacuate the town. And people are like, no, we're going to stay. We're going to fight. And it's like, well, me and my buddies are out of here. And from the fiction that he shows up again to help fight. It's a very Gandalf and Emir and the Riders of Rohan sort of thing. And Gandalf's like, I'm going to be back in 3 days. And he comes back in 3 days. You don't really hear what Gandalf did during those 3 days.
Right.
But that could be an adventure in itself. It's like, we're going to need reinforcements. We're going to send some of the players out to get that person to come back with the resources that they need.
Oh, that's delightful. Or a little bit of the Han Solo, I'm out of here.
Exactly.
But that, that little bit of heroism brings you back. Excellent. Are there any other adventures you wanted to like list off, or should we get to the let's build an adventure part?
Let's get to the let's build an adventure part.
Cool. All right. So chat, this is where you come in. So the basic structure of an instant adventure is it really hinges around keys. So there's sort of, and you two should chime in anytime because I have not designed these. I have just, played them a lot. So there's the overall some problem or some mystery or some challenge, some overall like crux of what the meat of the adventure is. And then there are things called keys that tap into that adventure. And so the keys are they're usually listed by function, and so they can take different forms. So if we are playing the adventure of I'm trying to do a bank heist, okay? The keys might be I need something that lets me access, the security system. I'll need to turn down the security system to get in there. Another key might be I need something that actually opens like the vault. Another key, might be I need to know, I need to get intel on like when the guards are moving around or something. So that's a very like zoomed in, like almost an encounter that's built by keys. And so a lot of these are a bit more broad, but just so you understand, like the thing that helps me bypass the security system might be I have a really top-notch hacker, or it might be I have a contact that, like, I have somebody on the inside. And so those the GM can, based on what the players are doing, can sort of make that they keep the key in mind. And so they make sure that your adventure is never hidden behind a locked door the players can't open. And so you can keep you keep knowing what's really important about the adventure, that you can adjust as the players go off rails, but you can still hook them up with the right key so they can unlock the adventure, right? Is that a decent description of it, Bruce?
I think that's great. I think the one thing I would emphasize, though, is what you were going towards, is that the keys can take place no matter, players have the opportunity to find these keys no matter where they are, right? And there's always an option, well, maybe they go off here and maybe the key becomes, they need someone to can get them into the vault, right? Or maybe they find an actual, device that can open the door for them, or the actual combination, or whatever it happens to be, right? But the idea is that depending on what the characters do, the option is to find the key at that location, so that the adventure always has the opportunity to move forward. You don't always have to use a key, but you have the option to use a key when it feels right narratively to do so as the GM.
So I should have had a picture up of what this looked like, but I was not clever enough to do that ahead of time. So what's really nice about these is they tend to be big maps that then have little encounter things coming off of them, and some of these little call out boxes of a place or an encounter have icons, and so those icons are referencing, the triangle is the key you need to bypass security, and so they'll have some suggestions of what that key could look like. So I think we should probably start sketching out and asking chat to give us sort of let's get that meat of the adventure, right? And then we'll be able to come up with keys that players could potentially unlock. So let's set it in Ellomyr. Sean, do you have any ideas for, do we want to make an adventure that ties in at all to the arc of your Cypher play season? Or, I think we should make it kind of modular, right? It's some opportunity that arises that could take place during the timeline of Defenders of Ellomyr.
Or it could be after. We have a lot of stuff that we know is happening in the fiction that's coming up, that it's really easy. Sorry, I have a cat right here who's like clowning all over things, so I'm holding my microphone out of the way. But again, the idea of an instant adventure is something you can just kind of squeeze in wherever, because it's very fluid in terms of what pieces fall together when the PCs need them. We do know that there is the Valley of Sin nearby, and people have been doing expeditions into that for iotum to salvage, to build things for that. We also know that one of those expeditions brings back this device that warns everybody that the Iron Wind is coming. So that could be an incidental thing that they kind of happen to find, which is a key for the next instant adventure, or the next adventure period. But the fact that Monte decided there is a Valley of Sin nearby, that is just this horribly dangerous place, but that's exactly where PCs go. I think that's a really easy go-to for this.
Good point.
What do you think, Bruce?
So yeah, something that would take you to the Valley of Sins, are you saying that's a key in order to come up with some other problem, or what's the conflict that this instant adventure is trying to solve, or the unmet need, or the mystery, I guess? Those would be kind of the three things that I would kind of look at as sort of the basis for this instant adventure. I don't think we should do Margaret, because that's been overdone. Maybe we should have some other issue, like there's like, we've been seeing this weird storm kind of on the horizon in the direction of the Valley of Sins, right? And where the lightning shoots up, right, rather than goes down, and it's getting more and more relevant, or it's getting more significant. There's been more storms, let's just say. So why is that, and what is the mystery behind that, and what are the deeper repercussions? So that might be a way to get things off, and of course it could lead to anything.
Yeah.
That we decide here.
And maybe like a part of that storm spun off into town, and so the townsfolk are like, can you do something about this? Is there a device that's making these storms? Can you turn it off? But all that requires going into the Valley of Sin and investigating what the cause of the problem is.
So the idea is probably that people suspect that the Valley of Sins, or some object or entity within the Valley of Sins, is somehow generating these storms, and so the PCs are potentially faced with this opportunity to go there and figure out what it is and how to stop it. How's that sound, Darcy?
That sounds lovely. And there's a really good idea from chat from Visley75, which I think ties in really well to this. Their idea was that maybe the device that warns of the iron wind starts going off when the iron wind is nowhere near, and maybe it's warning of something else. So maybe that device that has been useful for warning about the iron wind is also flickering when you get these lightning storms off in the distance that are shooting up. And so it's of very visceral tension to the community that we really should investigate it, because this device has saved our butts before.
If I remember the fiction correctly, they knew like 6 months in advance or 9 months. Somehow this thing they found within the Valley of Sin warned them that within 6 or 9 months, the Valley of Sin, that the Iron Wind would be coming. So this device, obviously, whatever it is, has some ability to look into the future. What if it's malfunctioning, right? What if it has some other function, and its ability to look into the future was just some side effect of whatever else is going on, right? And this malfunction is, as another side effect, is creating these weird storms.
Ooh, so that's something that we would know as the GMs, but the players would have to find out?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
So they would have to, so finding that out would be one of the keys.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
One of the keys would be like, it's a malfunction. It's of this kind of complex. Because in the Valley of Sins, I don't know how many people actually watched the video where we all kind of played through the Valley of Sins. All of us did, right? And Monte was the GM.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of this series of networked nodes and modules and things kind of throughout the valley, in addition to some other stuff going on. And they all kind of have some interdimensional and temporal effects, right? So it makes a fantastic place to go and explore and try and find out things. So some sort of weird interaction of, there's some function that is being distributed among these devices, and we're figuring out, it's a malfunction. We have to figure out how to fix them. Well, first we have to find out that it's malfunctioning, and then now we have to decide what are the 3-4 things that we have to do that will actually cause this thing to stop throwing up the storms at the very least, and fix it.
Yeah, and perhaps we would worry that it's not going to show us future dangers too, if its new function is being overridden by just creating these storms. At least stopping the storms would help, but maybe it will even bring back the functionality that we care about, even if that's a side effect. Cool.
And I like that. I like the Bruce's idea of it's the devices in the Valley of Sin that are causing this problem, and whatever the PCs have is just basically kind of like a remote receiver for that. It's almost like a cellular phone, because if that thing is causing the storms, you just hit that with a hammer until it stops. But if it's actually this structure in the Valley of Sin, that means you have to take some agency in going to where the problem is instead of looking at fixing your broken remote control.
Cool. I'm just asking chat for some different steps that one might be able to take. So I almost feel like, if I'm thinking about this map and little call out boxes of different encounters and scenes that could play out with this, that might be associated with keys, I suspect there'd be at least one that might be an Ellomyr. Like someone in Ellomyr has, depending on this timeline, has probably accumulated a certain number of experienced nanos, or perhaps an Aeon priest or two, some people who kind of know their way, definitely some rights who are used to picking things apart and putting them back together, hopefully. So I bet the key that it is a malfunction, maybe there's some opportunities in town for certain people you might be able to go to who could suss that out. Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah, I think a key that is, you find out it's a malfunction. If you're an Ellomyr, it's someone telling you, yes, it is a malfunction, right? So that totally makes sense. But it could be someone, if the PCs just charge off,
Yeah.
towards the Valley of Sins, maybe
Right.
it's someone who they meet there who is salvaging for Iotum, and that person can say, there's just been this weird surge of energy, and ever since these storms have been happening, right? And they could tell the PCs that. Um, so that so it's a very open-ended sort of key in that sense. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, or you could even maybe come across, if you didn't want to talk to anybody, right? If your players are just not social, I wonder if you could find a device that looks a lot like this device, and you see that a big component is burned out of the device that you have and shouldn't be. So I think there's a number of ways you could figure out that something about this is damaged or malfunctioning.
You also could,
oh, go ahead.
like, sorry, just if there are people in town who say, yeah, that information, so and so has that information, and they're in the Valley of Sins right now, we haven't seen them in a couple of weeks, then it also kind of gets this aspect of, are we having a rescue mission? What is this person doing? When you get to them, is it a talk to them situation, or are they like dead and you have to read their journal or some sort of data?
Did they cause the problem in the first place?
Exactly. It's like, oh, I'm going to salvage this. Oh, bad idea. Boom. And they can't fix it because they died. And so now the PCs have to correct that problem.
That sounds awesome. And of course, as they come upon one of these keys is like this corpse and their journal and the burned out implements. There's lots of crazy things in the Valley of Mist that will try and stop the players. There's the hunter, right, which is this apex predator, partly alive, partly metallic. There's the blue mist, whether they're alive or it's unclear, that'll turn you inside out if you've ever told a lie. So the Valley of Sins, so if you ever sinned and told a lie, right, that's how it got the name Valley of Sins in the first place. So there are a lot of things that are ancillary to the actual goal of what your adventure is, which causes tension and causes you to have fun and exciting encounters to try and get to what you're actually looking for.
Ooh. There's some cool ideas from chat that I want to just throw into this milieu. Some people are saying they like ideas about having to. It sounds like there's some interest in, yes, it's a machine, but also maybe it's a little bit alive or requires weird organic components. I feel like that's always very Numenera and a neat idea. I wonder if this person that was trying to salvage it or whatever somehow got in a freakish way kind of fused with it or something, and maybe that's how it was not organic before, and now its little components are taking the new substratum of human cells and brains to work with. So that's always, maybe it's fundamentally changed from the person who was trying to salvage it. And there's also
I like that better than that he's not dead, or she.
Yeah.
They're actually, this thing, they become part of the problem themselves. I think that's fantastic. Cool. And really gross and like, what's going on here?
Ugh.
And they might be thinking, if I could just get a message back to Ellomyr to let people know to come help me, and the machine is manifesting that as, well, I'll go and have this, atmospheric phenomenon that'll attract a lot of attention and do this. And the organic person is like, no, please stop doing that. You're causing lightning.
Oh, lovely. We've got lots of good ideas coming in here. So, okay, so the overall structure of the adventure so far would be, one of the keys is figure out that this device is damaged. And then what would some of the next steps be? So now we kind of know one of the answers behind it is there's a person who is salvaging it. Something went horribly wrong, and now they're kind of part of it, and they perhaps need help, and maybe that's what's manifesting it. So so like you said, Bruce, we are zooping to where that person is, but along the way, what are some challenges that they might face that, so should would one of the keys be like, we had a vehicle when we went into the Valley of Sins. Do you think, so I guess getting to the Valley of Sins would be, maybe they have a couple options, but getting a vehicle or otherwise having safety measures as they get into Ellomyr might be an optional key. So a lot of times in here they list sort of keys that are pretty critical to the adventure, right? Like figuring out that the device is damaged is pretty important for opening up this whole mystery. But there's some optional keys as well where it's a thing you can find to make your life easier. And so I would say finding something to protect you or finding a relatively safe path through the Valley of Sins might be one of those keys.
Right, because the apex predator is pretty terrible, right? And maybe a key would be finding some method of dealing with that, right? And at various locations within the adventure, there might be 2 or 3 different ways that you could deal with that apex predator. Like
Yeah.
one place might be, oh, here's the perfect lure for the apex predator. And another location, the key, like if the key is found here, it might be you can trap the apex predator here for a time, right? So there's a few different ways. So I think that would be a really good key to have. Another key, though, that occurred to me when we were talking about this guy being fused into the guy, I keep saying, I mean that entity, the person who's being fused into the thing. Obviously, that's a thing that can happen, right? So it means that the PC might face that same danger. So another optional key might
good
be
point.
Get the PC out of this fused device, right? Figure out a way to do that. Although that might actually be an important key to get this person also taken out of this fused device as well. Maybe one of the keys will be extract right from fused device, because it's this organic connection that has been created is actually what's causing these storms to grow and grow and grow in the way that Sean said it.
Yeah.
Kind of growing out of things. So finding other organic components now to replace the ones that this person is serving accidentally might be a very interesting key, which requires salvaging. Oh, maybe even one of the partly living hunter, right? The hunter's part live, part dead. I'm babbling at this point.
That would be great.
That would be kind of fun, salvaging the hunter. So a key to making the hunter caged or sleeping or somehow amenable, and then salvaging the hunter for some biocircuitry or we actually are working on some biological iotum right now. So there are many options for that.
Oh, I like that a lot. And it kind of presents the, at least with my players, I know we're a lot of like bleeding hearts who just want to befriend all the monsters. So knowing that this device will, I wonder if you have to have something to exchange. You can't extract someone until you have a replacement. You need that Indiana Jones moment where you're taking the statue, but you need to put the weight on it. Which means you're forced to go find something, and you need to choose about. Yeah.
One character says they're going to sacrifice themselves, right? That is also an option.
Totally.
Which, when I was first playing The Strange, I think you were actually, when I first met you, Darcy, several years ago, one of the characters decided they were going to try and just sacrifice themselves in order to stop this event from happening. And it's like, wow, good job, dude. That was really cool.
Especially in a one shot. That's such a fun way to go out. And like the person isn't dead. So I almost, they're not, it doesn't sound like they're very mobile based on how we've been talking about it. I'm imagining down the line that, this person has sacrificed themselves or whatever, and they've become this strange, I can see into the future oracle machine situation, right? That could be a very interesting, the oracle up on the mountain kind of person that they have hanging out for them in the Valley of Sins.
And we know that the Trilling Shard can communicate with other tech in different ruins. So maybe a future adventure idea is, let's get the stuff that we need to tune the Trilling Shard to talk to that device in the Valley of Sin, so that our friend, Chris, who's been trapped there and is connected to this oracle device, can now actually communicate with us and warn us directly about things that this altered perception makes them aware of.
Ooh. Some things people are talking about in chat that are some good ideas is ways to, is it that the device as currently written has like sensors around town? Is that a thing, or is that something that's coming from chat? Do you know about that, Sean? You're muted, but it sounds like no.
It's coming from chat.
Okay, cool.
I think it's a good idea. And considering that there's nanotech and things like the Iron Wind, and the fact that Ellomyr is next to a ruin, like who knows what's 100 feet underground beneath Ellomyr? Who knows what's flying slightly out of phase that people in the village can't see it, but it's there. I mean, that stuff is omnipresent in the Ninth World.
Cool. So I think even as much as we've just said is pretty much an adventure, right? It's like, we, the GM, know the sort of the truth of the matter. And I think a lot of times these instant adventures have a little convenient, like, like a 3-sentence, like, here, GM, in case you've gotten confused about all our red herrings or whatever player theories are happening, here's what you, the GM, know happens, and whether the players figure that out or bumble through this in a completely different way, that's fine. But at least it keeps you, the GM, pretty anchored. So I would say our like brief summary would be the device used to predict the Iron Wind has malfunctioned because a wanderer has tried to salvage its counterpart in the Valley of Sins and got horribly fused with it, right? Is that kind of how our brief summary? I'm possibly getting details confused.
No, I think that's right.
That works. Yeah. Go ahead.
And then the final piece of that would be that the reason it's giving off these storms and everything, the reason it's malfunctioned is because it's taken on this organic component, but it won't be fixed. There's no way to fix it without it. It will always need an organic component now, right? So you need to save. You have the option to save the person, but you need to give it a sacrifice instead. So, yeah, and I wonder if it's like if a player sacrifices themselves, is it that they can stop the storms because that was just a message for help, or, with the hunter in the machine, is it able to do more damage? Who knows?
This is where I think it's really cool that the setting is so weird in that you have so many possibilities that if you listen to what the players come up with in their own headcanon, and if a player has a really great idea and says, I think it works like this, and I'm going to try this, and the GM says, that actually sounds to me like it's going to work great, let it work that way. Like, even if that deviates from what the plan was for the adventure, let the players follow headcanon, because it lets them feel really, really smart for figuring out a solution. And it's the right solution because it's the one they thought of.
Mm.
Wow, this is an adventure I want to write now.
Hey, you should do it in all your abundant free time.
Well, there's a second Cypher play season coming along, so
hey, that would be really fun.
I think I'm on the hook for. So hey, thanks.
Cool. See. Oh, what should the title of this be? Chat, come at us with some ideas for titles. I think that could be really fun. And if you, I would definitely recommend, if you are curious about the Valley of Sins that we keep talking about, we have the videos on YouTube of the 2-part adventure that Monte ran a number of us through, which was really neat for seeing all the various, some of the various dangers that we had to operate between. And of course, we got to take this fabulous, bizarre Ninth World vehicle in, which is very dear to me. And so that was a very, I feel like that helped me prep a lot for kind of what the Numenera Destiny will be like, because it's, finding these whole regions that you might want to go back to and have different experiences in seems to make a lot of sense for me. Cool. I will put a link in the chat. But yeah, so we come at us with titles. Do you guys have any title ideas for it? Yeah,
something that's a play on a Ghost in the Machine.
Oh, there we go.
A right and not that. So maybe not, but I'll have to think about it.
Yeah, if you could hint to that would be great.
Or it could just be something straightforward like Caught in the Machine, right? I mean, that's kind of scary.
Right.
Well, if you don't want to give away, tip your hand a bit, then I might say something like Storms of Sin or something like that relating to.
Yeah, the initial manifestation of the problem. I like that a lot. Chat is full of I love seeing this from you, chat. Thank you so much. Full of other ideas for ways you could fix it, for other secrets or specifics about that machine. I could imagine this machine, you could go as deep as you wanted about other things it could be doing, about making this a really center point of your campaign. I find that a lot of times these instant adventures, you're finding really neat things, you're meeting really neat people. Those can keep coming up in play. And so I think these little adventures can have big consequences down the line. But the nice part about Numenera is, just like Cyphers, all this tech can break down. And so if you find out that it is ruining your campaign, that you have an oracle on the mountain who can see into the future, it is perfectly acceptable as a GM to have something dangerous happen to that or have it change or morph in a new way. Nothing's guaranteed in the Ninth World, and that is a huge boon to GMs who are worried about balance or who have accidentally had huge wrenches thrown in any semblance of stories they feel they can tell. Cool.
If there's an oracle on the mountain, probably someone else will come along and scoop that oracle up, right? Some entity or data sphere projection or who knows what, right?
Rival town or just someone to spite the PCs or who wants to attack the town. Okay, we've got some titles.
That's like not wanting to be predicted. I mean, we have a bit of time travel in the Ninth World, so there's a lot of causality sort of questions that you can bring in as plot devices.
Oh, very funny. Yeah. Chasing the lightning, storm in the machine, kind of cool. Let us not call it breaking wind. Excellent. Yeah. Storm Hunter. I like this a lot. Cool. Well, I think that's what we have for you today. I thought this was very fun. This is an experiment of adventure jamming, and it certainly helped me figure out a lot about how Bruce and Sean sort of conceptualize adventures, which is, as someone who mostly runs, most of my jamming is running and very heavily modifying pre-written stuff. It's a whole new world when you have to write your own things. So that's been terrifying.
You pretty much saw it, right? You saw me start going, it'd be cool. That is what I do, right? I go, I write down some ideas, right? And then
that's how the magic happens.
Exactly.
Oh, that's delightful. Okay, well, this will be up on YouTube a little bit later. It will be up on Twitch for about 2 weeks, which is really nice because you can see the chat alongside as you rewatch. And I think this is a really valuable discussion. So thank you so much, everybody. If these kinds of adventures are really exciting to you, get excited for Numenera Discovery and Destiny. But also check out cypherplay.montecookgames.com because that's where you can still sign up through any local retailer. It's a totally free program. You get 6 adventures written by Sean. It's called Defenders of Ellomyr. And there's actually a bit that sort of previews the crafting mechanics. Isn't that right, Sean? Cool. So really, really fun stuff. Totally free to the store, but they might need a GM. So if you're really excited about it, maybe offer to GM for that store. And if you report your events, there are cool rewards, all sorts of fun things. So check it out. And if you really liked this, maybe share it around and let us know you liked it, and then we can keep doing more stuff you like and less stuff you don't like. That's how this beautiful process works. So thank you, everybody. Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do people have to be a member of the asset team to run these, or can they just run the Cypher play at the store and then just report it to us and get rewards?
Yeah, it's separate from our asset team program. So just anybody can go run a Cypher play thing. And if you're like me and you're a monster who really likes running a whole bunch of different one-shots for random stores and conventions, you should definitely think about joining our asset team. So that can be found on our website, sort of in the drop-down from fan support, I think. So come be my asset team member, and that would be lovely. You can get shins for running demos, and so you get sort of store credit and rewards and my eternal gratitude, etc. So fun things like that. I think we have some asset team members in chat, so if you have questions, they're maybe good to ask. We also have some other Twitch events I want to get put in your mind coming up here. So tomorrow we're going to have a The Raven Wants What You Have live session. And so if any of you have watched the last episode, session 3-2, I would highly recommend just even jumping in there. It's a really beautiful, terrifying, self-contained, heart-wrenching experience. So the sort of episode 3-1 was sort of Ocean's 11 heisty. How are we going to get in this enormous tower with an ever-dying goddess on top, and there's blood running down the tower, and we pair up with a ne'er-do-well that we all kind of hate, and so we join forces with this person we don't like. And then this last week's episode was what happens at the top of the tower, and it is legitimate tears were shed at the game, and I cried again when I was watching it because it is so intense and beautiful. So I highly recommended to go watch that and talk with us and process with us tomorrow. And in these live chats we'll have this will be, I think, Shauna, me, and Sean, I believe, at that one. We sort of switch off who's at the live events. So if you have questions, we like to really interact with chat. So Bring us your questions about the show and Invisible Sun and how we think about, our characters or how we came up with our characters. Ask me about my ghost girlfriend is always a good way into my heart. So that's The Raven Wants What You Have live tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific on Twitch. On Sunday, I'm going to be doing an RPG brunch. It's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific, and it's on Easter, so if you have nothing to do on Easter or April Fools, come hang out with me, eat brunch, and it'll be kind of a freewheeling discussion, really interacting with chat about new game masters. So if you are a new game master, let's share advice to each other. If you want to know how to help friends of yours who are interested in game mastering, that's a great opportunity, or anything about sort of getting new game masters into the hobby or learning sort of early GM tips from each other, I think is sort of on the table. But it's a very relaxed, chill, freewheeling discussion. And then on Tuesday, April 3rd, I'm going to be running my second episode of Echoes Linger, the Numenera actual play that I'm running for Sean and Bruce and Shauna and Monte, which you don't often get to see as a player. So that's super fun. It's going to be Bodrov nights, and so we're in the town of Bodrov, and very interesting, strange things will happen. And I may be reaching out to chat or possibly even doing a Twitch event to plot some things for these players to interact with. I really like adventure jamming. So look forward to that. That's going to be at 7 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday, April 3rd. Let me look back at chat, make sure I'm not missing any of you. You are all wonderful. And Team Cicatrix, yes, okay. So we hope to see you around. Tell a friend if you like this, and yeah, have a great day. We hope all of your adventures are exciting and emotionally devastating, I think. At least I do. All right. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Sean. Hope we get to do this again sometime.
Thank you, Darcy. That was fabulous.
Thank you, chat people.
Yes, thank you. All right. Good night, everybody, or good afternoon.